Hello, this is Linda Vettrus-Nichols, and I have with me the most amazing author, Antonina Andreeva. Welcome, Antonina.
Thank you, Linda. Thanks for having me, and thanks for including me in this amazing lineup. I'm so excited to talk to you about.
Yeah, there's this summit coming up, and I just have a few of you lined up to do some pre-summit interviews, and so thank you for doing this. I know your favorite is from the book Women Who Run with the Wolves, the Handless Maiden, and that's all the stages of initiation, which, of a woman, and the whole female psyche, and the masculine, feminine energy, and you're our gal for that. That's for sure.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, your book teaches on energy is key in kind of like that in general, like what is all of that, and then how we can access it through our multidimensional nature. So I would love it if you would just tell me your quick story of transformation. You were like this, and then this happened, and now, like, here's who you're serving in the world before we get into it.
Thank you, Linda. I have undergone quite a few initiations in my life, as is any woman on the path, as I could imagine. But I would say one of the first ones was when I was around 17 to 18, and I moved away from home to another country to attend university, and got myself into quite a pickle. And as a result of that, my psyche, I had a breakdown. So my psyche split because I couldn't, I think at the time I couldn't handle the heaviness of what happened.
Right.
And some people would call it going crazy, but I actually call it going sane.
Yeah.
Because what happens when something like that occurs is you break through you can call it human limitation, and you can begin to see things that are unseen, hear things that are unheard of, and feel things that you wouldn't normally have access to. And I would say this is probably would have been one of my earlier forays into the world of energy, as chaotic as it was. But what that gave me, the gift that gave me, is of course understanding that there are things beyond our sight and our traditional senses. And in a bid to put myself together to resemble humans somewhat, I began a lifelong quest in understanding what was that experience that I have had. And so my quest took me on a voyage to India, where I spent time on an Ayurvedic farm, and looked into mind, body, soul medicine. I then worked. I was then so impressed and so taken with this ancient philosophy of connection between mind, body, and soul, that I then spent a few years actually working in a similar place, but in London, and then deepened my study of energy through various courses and modality. And finally, after the birth of my daughter, which was another initiation of its own, came to work for myself, came to work online. And I think there it was another journey into deepening and understanding how you deliver this knowledge, how do you deliver this learning to, and how do you share this with us. And that's about where I'm at right now, having developed my own framework of upside down spirituality, and specifically feminine type spirituality, which is working from the bottom up rather than the up down, that is mostly being taught and practiced in the West. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah. And who are you working with now? Like, what types of women? They're powerful, and yet there's maybe some angst or fears going on. Tell us a little bit about the women that you work with, or people.
Yeah, so the types of women that tend to be attracted to my work or come into my practice are women in transition. So they are about to embark on a journey, and sometimes there's a lot of fear because they have built their whole life, their identity, their business, their relationship on this previous identity, and yet that feels small, outdated, unfitting for them, unbefitting for them somehow. And so there is this desire, there's this call that they're receiving, and that call, perhaps they may have ignored it in the past, or they have tried to ignore it, and it's just getting louder and louder. And that call might take form of a disease, a relationship breakdown, or an evolution, because it's never really a breakdown, it's just changing form, a kind of confusion, or if you were in a position or in a career that you have suddenly outgrown, perhaps your kids are ready to leave home, and so there's this new horizon that beckons, right? But in order to get there, in order to answer that calling, you have to become everything that you are not, and so to embrace this new person that's wanting to come through. And so this is where this is the kind of the point that they come to me, and with my work, part of my work is really to hold them in that space and to help them midwife that next level, whatever that may look like. And it's huge. It's been a huge privilege and joy watching that happen, watching them find themselves, watching them come into their own. Sometimes, as I said, it looks spectacular, sometimes it's very subtle, sometimes it's just clarity about what it is that they want and what their next step looks like, or what it is that they're no longer available for.
Beautiful. I love it. Okay, let's move on. So we have access, right, to our energy, all kinds of different energy. And what would you say from women who run with the wolves, that the bulls, that was good. It's a book that gives you access to the female psyche, right?
Yeah.
And so when you, in your work, when you talk about access, right, accessing that multidimensional nature, what do you mean by you have access?
I believe that we all, as you said, we all have access, and this is a knowledge and a wisdom that we have inherently possessed. So we came into the world with that. However, we have forgotten that we have access in the first place, mostly due to the conditioning that we undergo from the from the moment we are born, where we are taught to look outside for answers. First it's our parents, then it's our, or perhaps schooling, then university, just society to provide those answers. And so of course anyone who's read the book knows that one of the key takeaways is about going inside. And my work grants you also that access by looking into the cellular level and unlocking all the memories, all the stuff that basically stored in your DNA. So we call your DNA is your data bank for all the experiences that you have experienced to date. And so this is why, in the sacred texts or religious texts, they always, or even in psychology, it's always about looking inside to awaken. So all the answers that we tend to seek outside is actually found inside of us.
Right. And how does that all come together for what the soul would like to experience next, kind of idea? Am I tracking it?
Sure. So I would say you will always have clues littered throughout your journey, whether it's in this in the form of a particular interest or your pull towards something, piece of information, a film, a book, you will have a natural aptitude or a genius which has been honed by your ancestors and passed on generation to generation. This will be the things that you're so good at that you won't even consider them important or significant just because they come so naturally to you. It's only later when you go on this journey, you begin to discover that things that come so easily and effortlessly to you might be an effort for somebody else.
Yeah.
And then of course there are certain experience and there are certain initiations throughout life that tend to take us into this next step or next level. So in my case, one of the if you take the overview of the work that I do, is of course energies, of course mind, body and soul connection, and I had to arrive through it through my own experience, through my own trauma. And so if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have need to deep dive and discover that and get really good at it.
Yeah.
And becoming life's work.
Right, which taps you into the knowledge and the wisdom that you came into this world with, and then all the filters, and then you get to tap back into a very powerful way, right?
Right. And of course, the easiest way to kind of start tracking it is probably go back and dip into what is it that interested you as a kid. I mean, I know from our previous conversation, Linda, one of your natural aptitudes is movement, dancing, and I'm sure that if we were to take everything that you have done in your life, there will be that golden thread that goes through it.
Yeah, I know that, you're right.
When I was younger, one of my things was to be magical and to be a witch and to kind of be tapping into that part of myself. And in a way, I suppose there is a part of it that can to deal with the unseen, to conjure up stuff, to move stuff. And if you think about it, for sure, this is part of the work now.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because my first coach was a shaman, and I had a gymnastics accident and ended up getting married and not pursuing my dance career, and I became a special ed teacher. And so I identified myself no longer the dancer, right? I'm not a dancer anymore. I'm the special ed teacher. And she just said, "You're a dancer." "You're still a dancer." And it's like, yeah. And I got back in touch with it, and I started really looking at the way I dressed, and I've always looked the best in flowy things. I've gravitated to flowy things. Even in any kind of branding, there's kind of some beauty and some flow. So I was kind of shocked. It's like, wow, that is who I am on such a core level, not just something that I did or planned to pursue. So that was pretty mind-blowing when she said that, and I got back in touch with that. And that has helped my branding too.
Your essence, right? Your essence remains the same throughout. It's unchangeable.
Exactly. Yep. And I've always been able to make sense of things. So that's like in why coaching, that is my why. I make sense of things for myself and others, and that's always come easy for me. So I love applying that with my mindful mompreneurs, and then also making sure their kids don't have any learning gaps. And I do that with my husband, with the CR process that we take people through too. I love the journals. We get 7 days of journaling back after our process, and they're just so deep, and I love analyzing them and making sense of them. It's my absolute favorite part. All right, so death is not the absolute. That's a good one for me right now. How about, what does that one mean for you?
Well, so part of my journey after, putting myself back together was undergoing, so there was a lot of moments where I didn't know what was happening at the time, and it felt like it felt like, death was very near. Only later I found out that these were panic attacks. And when I looked deeper into what panic attacks were, these were just really a sign of misalignment, of being, off the path. But experiencing them was quite triggering and scary. And so that made me personally confront fear of death. And so by confronting fear of death, I realized that death is just a transition, just as is birth, transition from one state to another. And we have a lot of information about birth, about welcoming babies into this world, but we don't have as much or as a positive view of people exiting the earth plane. And so there is a lot of fear in the collective psyche stored around the idea of somebody completing their journey and getting ready to go to the next level, because that's all we are ever doing. We're evolving constantly, moving through the spiral of life, or the DNA spiral, and going to the next level. And so in confronting that, I realized that's like, you can call that a trauma on the collective level, one that consumes through fear a lot of energy resource, and one that is constantly playing out at the back of our mind,
right.
like an interference, and we aren't probably fully aware of it, but everything we do is to try and get away from the thought of that this is inevitable and this is going to happen. And the reason, again, that we fear it so much, because of the fear of the unknown.
Yeah, exactly. Our ego doesn't handle that one well. That's for sure.
But in actuality, when you start confronting it, and one of the ways is, I remember going to a Buddhist workshop and even writing to somebody, and it was like, well, if it hasn't happened and you're here and you're writing to me, the fact is you're still here. And so when you start confronting that fear head on, you start to realize what a beautiful experience that is.
Yeah.
Like I said, that it is part of the universal design, and that design is absolutely perfect. And you actually begin reclaiming all that resource, all that energy that you put into not thinking about it, not confronting it, not looking at it, towards something that serves you. And I feel like when we are confronted with our mortality, is when we can begin answering the question of, what is it that I really want, and what am I here for? What am I here to create? What am I a vessel for?
Right.
And so that becomes a rebirth in a way, new initiation. Like, right, so okay, I'm here for a certain amount, a stretch of time. I may spend it aimlessly, or I can use it proactively to create something.
Yep.
So that when I am ready to leave, it will be done with a sense of fulfillment.
Yeah, and in your book you talk about repurpose the purpose. Do you want to touch base on that one?
Sure. So repurposing the purpose is really the concept that I explained, where we retract the energetic resource from being tangled up in internal conflicts and things that we don't want, perhaps things that haven't gone so well for us before, and then repurposing it towards creation of something that we do want, something that we strongly believe in, something that we think is going to be of value to others, and something that can serve society or humanity at large, or even small people. So this thus you stop being a consumer and start becoming a creator, and I think that's a big turning point.
Oh yeah, in the coaching industry especially, because there's so much free stuff to consume. Right? Yeah, and that just gets to it sets off everybody's autism, because it's intake 50 million filing cabinets all over the brain.
That's true. So the good solution for this is to turn off your usage.
Yeah, right? Well, and it's interesting, how you talked about that feeling from your trauma of like splitting almost into two people, because you get this real split of running emotional pictures on the right side of your brain and not being able to get any logic over there. And so one of the techniques that I teach my clients, and I have my clients teach their kids, is my hand is my helper, because it's almost like an energetic wire coming out of the right side of the brain and an energetic wire coming out of the left side of the brain. And when your hand, or even just the thumb and the middle finger, go over, it brings those two wires together. Thus it brings logic into the emotional pictures we are running. And so if you just see that when someone gets bad news, they go, oh, right, or they'll go here because there's something right here too. So that's an interesting pressure point. Yeah. And another thing they'll do if it's really, really traumatic is they'll grab their belly at the same time. And then if it's super, super, their knees will go right out from under them. But a lot of times it's like one of these and then they're down, So this is so helpful. And when kids come home from school, instead of bugging them, how was your day? You just think them. You can surrogate for them, and you can go like this, and you just help them like kind of release stuff from their day by getting logic over into those emotional pictures.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'm going to apply that today.
I can see every mom driving to school like this.
Instead of hi, good to see you.
Yeah, because once you pick them up, you're going to be doing this anyways for yourself. You might as well get ahead of it and do it for the kid. I love that. Okay, so embody the truth. Now, like in the story, the Handless Maiden, all the stages of initiation, the first one is the stage of the innocent, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's the predator, who in that story is the devil himself, right? And then the walking between two worlds, just like you explained with your drama story, right? You just feel like this split person. You're part of the world and you're part of floating away from the world. And then there's the kind of the coming together of the masculine and the feminine in the marriage of king and queen. And then there's the message gets changed, right? And the devil changes the message. I love that one. And then both the king and queen are, she's escaping and he is searching. And it's just a fascinating story of all the different stages of initiation.
Definitely. I remember a couple of months ago going on a journey, and that was the book that was available on board. And so I was going through my own kind of search phase. And so like that particular story at that time was so timely. I remember I couldn't put it, I couldn't put the book down for days because it was literally glued to it, even though my copy was at home for maybe a year before.
Interesting. Go ahead.
Friend's copy, and that story really grabbed me for the reason that you're explaining, because it was just like, yes, I'm literally living this right now.
So about how many years ago did you read it?
I started it maybe 2 years ago. So I remember about 2 years ago, I deep dived into, 3 years ago, I deep dived into the whole feminine psyche. So I would say at that point, just exploring more than anything. And then my mentor at the time has said, there's this book that I think you should read. Yeah, sure, okay.
Sure.
Then I think a month later, not even a week later, my friend reached out and she said, there is this book that I was gifted by somebody else, but it's not for me. But I do think it is for you.
Yeah, right.
So, she's like, as a present from me, I don't remember, it was like, I'm going to send it over to you. And I was like, oh, amazing. This is the very book. And I think I I picked it up, maybe write a story or two and put it down.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until May this year when I journeyed, when I traveled to Greece, you know, and I was going through some stuff in my personal life that, as I said, this was the only book on board, but thank God it was the only book on board, because that took me on a whole different journey.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow, that's fascinating. So how old are you right now?
37.
37. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's amazing. It didn't come to me until about 8 years ago. So I was 54, something like that. Anyways, so I read it pre-divorce, and I mean, I was in a marriage of 33 years. You don't just like up and leave a marriage without some really damn good reasons and testing out, is this really what I'm supposed to do? That book was so helpful for me. And then I read it post-divorce as well, and it was a whole new book. That's what I love about like reading it at different ages and stages of initiation too. It's just the freaking Bible of the female psyche. That's what I tell people. And David Dida's book, The Way of the Superior Man, is like the Bible of the male psyche. So what were you saying?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's an absolute must at different stages for different life. It is absolutely the Bible for female psyche.
Yeah, and you can read it cover to cover. Good luck, unless you're really ready for that. Ain't gonna happen. And just bebopping around in it, just like, you know, Holy Bible, bebopping around is good too, right? You know, just pick something and grab it. Whoa, I love it. All right. So now we're on Embody the Truth, the Darkness, the Cave of Darkness. Oh my gosh. So in the Handless Maiden, when she, you know, when she left home, she was wandering in the wilderness. And then when she was escaping for her life, she was wandering in the wilderness as a married woman with a baby, right? Yeah. So tell us about, you know, the concept.
Cave of Darkness, I think, is an essential, I would say, component to our soul journey. And as I'm sure, Linda, you know, it will happen more than once. It will, the down, as I call it, Cave of Darkness, the down, happens throughout our life cycles. And it happens when I believe the soul is ready to accelerate through something, to move through something. We will have a transition that might look like depression, loss of work, loss of relationship, basically loss of identity. And so we tend to go down. But the beautiful thing about down is that this is where, you know, we gain most of our strength and power. Like, this is where we tend to find ourselves. Because if you think about it, we don't really tend to find ourselves through the moments of the up, through the celebration, through the kind of the joy, which is kind of what like the modern spirituality teaches us, or just like the society teaches us. It's all about the up. Actually, no, it's not all about the up, you know.
Yeah.
It really goes, this is, you know, your heartbeat goes like that. And so it is absolutely natural progression for us to have up and down.
Oh, yeah, cool, Anthony. Great analogy. Never thought of that. I know my husband always teaches, like, he's a sailor, right? You know, Navy chief, so retired. Anyways, just like the ocean goes up and then like comes down, right? And so however high up the waves go is how low the waves go, and nobody ever really thinks about that. But just be on a ship when you're going down and then you go back up. Yeah. And so for emotions, excuse me, for our clients, he's like, just instead of having such a high, bring your highs down so that your lows don't get so low. And it really balances out their emotional energy.
Absolutely, exactly. Otherwise you kind of, it creates the roller coaster, the feast of famine, or whatever.
Yeah,
so, yeah. Essentially it is this, what we're striving towards is balance. But in the beginning, I think in the beginning of opening up and just like really owning the fact that down is nothing, there's nothing wrong with you if you're in the down. There's nothing, you know, even for myself, the learnings of the last few years is, I can, you know, there might be things that are happening in my personal life, or in my family life, and that doesn't take away from the value that I can deliver. If anything, it adds to it. The humanity adds to it. I might have, I've undergone an evolution through of a relationship, and if anything, my coaching around that got more informed, because of course I'm speaking from experience. I'm speaking from the actuality of it. I'm not removed from it.
Right.
And yeah, if once you start appreciating the down, it doesn't feel so heavy. It doesn't feel so weighty. It doesn't feel so you don't try to get away with it. You kind of, I wouldn't say enjoy it, but yeah, you definitely embrace it. Is probably the right word for it. And embracing, go on, sorry.
Yeah, and in a way, it's like living in a world without duality, because it just is. Like, however high the waves go, that's how low they go. It just is, right? And so then decide where you want to be on the markers. This is where I want to be. Okay, fine. Then now you just, like, for example, of the emotions, instead of going way, 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 way up, then just take them up to where it's comfortable, and then know that, what is it that you're avoiding is really kind of, what is your intention? What are you avoiding? What are you bringing in, right? That's really more the balance idea. Don't you agree?
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. And then when you start removing yourself from the emotional body, when you start to understand that you are not your emotion, is when you can really begin dancing with it. And both, the negative and the positive, right? So if we're only associating ourselves with the positive emotion, the crash is inevitable. Likewise, if we're only ever associating ourselves with the negatively charged emotion, then it will be somewhat challenging to experience. But really, you're here to experience the whole spectrum, the whole. And so the idea is, the more you open up, the more you allow this in, the more you allow yourself to experience all of it, the more your emotional range opens up, the more you have to experience in the first place. And that's the beauty. That's when life becomes interesting and beautiful and engaging and exciting, and all at the same time.
And all at the same time. Kind of like birth. It hurts like hell, and this beautiful baby, right? Now, wait a minute, I loved being pregnant. I don't want to stop being pregnant. It just like swirls your head, just like planned death. When someone is dying, or what you're doing there, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's the bittersweetness, there's the melancholy, there is the sadness, there is there's a lot of value in that as well.
Yeah, again, and the joy and the celebration, and Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you are matter and you matter. I love this one.
So at the very basic level, we are all made of vibrating particles of energy, and then it is the sound that the sound waves that kind of begin creating matter, molding matter. And so when we talk about you matter, you are matter, is the fact that you are here as a soul particle, or an important information particle that is here to experience the experience, right? For, I don't know, the large data bank. And so the experience, for source, your experience isn't classified as negative, as positive. It's all very, very valuable, because the more experience there is, data scientists will understand me, the more experience there is, the more of a picture there is. And so when we begin diving into that concept, we understand that you are matter. So on a very basic level, your energy, everything starts and ends with energy. And so vibration and oscillation are important, and this is what puts you in the driving seat of your life. But also that your matter, and that you matter, like your purpose of existence is super mega important and valuable for the whole picture. Without you, there wouldn't be a whole picture.
Exactly. Now I'm working with mirror twins or identical twins, but they're mirror twins. So if one of them is going to get something wrong, you know, the other one's going to get it right. It's like hysterical, you know, so even there, like they're different from each other and they bring a different energy to each other and to the world. And yeah, like don't ever discount. You are a snowflake, right? Do not discount yourself. You really make the world for all of us and yourself.
Yeah, and so when you kind of start getting the truth in, you understand how valuable you are, your kind of own self-worth and self-value begins to go up, because it's no longer defined by your conditioning, your past experience. It is only ever defined by source. And so in source eyes, you are super important, you're mega valuable, as I said, to the whole picture. Without you, there would be a crucial piece of the puzzle that's missing. And I think that initiation, you stop judging yourself so harshly about doing things right, that duality again, doing things right or doing things wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That one is so great. I love that. Okay. Emanation of you.
Emanation of you is, so emanation of you is when we begin to understand that our own particular energetic signature or frequency is part of the whole picture, and it's made up of our, genius, our particular set of talents, shall we say, either natural or developed, and really a collection of the things that we bring to the table. And so taking into that concept that everything is energy, and that your energy, it's about understanding that, as I said, you are a single beam, an energetic frequency beam, and working and then acting as a lighthouse of sorts, just shining your light, just shining your truth,
Right.
And allowing those who resonate with that truth coming to your sphere and interacting with them and exchanging with them. And those who aren't in resonance with that, that's okay too. That's also part of the experience for us and for them.
Yeah.